Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer, and welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Ryan Burch joins us today. He is an IT executive with over 25 years of experience. He is also the author of The History of Online Scams and How to Avoid Them. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. A little bit of a slow start there. Started to roll the music before the recording, so nobody else noticed it, but I'm sure you did. We're going to go
I like
ahead
I
and
like the
start. I want
music. It's good.
it kind of gets you energized a little bit. It is not, people have asked me, I got the guitars in the background, is that you playing? It's like, no, 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 I can't do that. So, would like to learn a little bit about the hows and whys you got into the technology field, starting from the beginning and just bring us through to where you're at today.
Yeah. So I've been doing this almost a little over 23 years now. I started right out of high school. Most people go into college and take that path. I went down a different path. I graduated high school and couldn't wait to get out of the house, so I went right into the workforce. Started out at Radio Shack fixing computers. They were a compact dealer way back in the day, when they were still around,
Oh,
and
I
they
gotta interrupt and say I love the Shack when it was around. It's
yeah.
like when I was a kid, I just like spend days just like walking around looking at all the electronic components, sometimes buying some. It's just a great place just to hang out.
I will admit I used to, steal ones and dollars out of the jar in my mom's room to go and buy some like diodes and LEDs so I could, try to start solder. I never got anything to work, but I loved it's how I got into this is really my love of electronics and
Well,
tinkering.
hopefully the statute of limitations is with your mom is passed. So.
I've I've apologized and paid her back and in duplicate, I guess, at this point. So yeah, I started out at Compact or at Radio Shack fixing compacts. There was they had a repair depot in Maryland. It was one of the only ones on the East Coast, and everybody would send their compact workstations or desktops into that Radio Shack to get repaired, and I that's where I started. And I really quickly fell in love with the hardware aspect of technology. I loved putting things together, plugging things in, and making things work. And especially when you're fixing it and taking something that was broken that somebody was really stressed about and fixing it and making it work again was I got a very strong sense of satisfaction and pride from that, and that really kind of drove the desire throughout the rest of my career. Decided after that I wanted to go to school, just wasn't sure how I was going to make it happen. Um, and then got a role as a junior systems administrator, which is basically, you know, it was more or less help desk, but it was
Mhm.
for a smaller organization. And I began, fixing computers desk side, working on what we call internal customers' computers, and really got a passion for again fixing things. But this time it was more hands-on in front of the person, so I got that instant gratification of, oh my God, you're a hero, thank you so much. And it continued to feed my desire to chase that feeling of, wow, I'm really able to help people. Um, and I at that moment decided I wanted to go to school. I did some online. I went to online school. I went to University of Phoenix. Back in the day, I used to get made fun of for that, but now it's a more common and acceptable path. So fortunately,
Mhm.
it doesn't hold me back. And then, just started working at corporate IT jobs. My first real corporate IT job was at Dunbar Armored, which I don't know if you're familiar with who they are. They're like the largest privately held armored trucking company
Oh,
in the country. They were acquired by Brinks back in like 2018, I think. And so I started working on their actual enterprise IT or enterprise infrastructure. I was hired to implement their Bez server. I'm not, and I'm probably dating myself a lot here. A Bez server is the BlackBerry Enterprise server. It's the
oh, that's right. BES. I remember
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So they had just rolled out their email. Believe it or not, their email system was actually running on their old Avaya legacy phone system. So email and phones used to be tied together in some organizations. Before email servers came about, the phone server would actually host your email server as well.
Hmm.
And so I was brought in right as they were implementing Small Business Server 2003, which I don't know why they were such a large organization. I don't know why they went that path, but it had all those products sort of rolled into one box, and they needed to integrate the Bez server with Small Business Server 2003. And so I got certified in 2003 and went and integrated their best server into their environment. For all it was worth, it only lasted about a year because we ended up that's the iPhone came out a year later and everybody wanted iPhones.
Yeah.
So and then from there I moved on to consulting. I went to New Age Computer Consulting, doing field work. They were primarily working for lawyers' offices and doctors' offices at the time. And I got a real feel for, at that point, working for SMBs in different verticals every day. I really enjoyed going to different businesses throughout the day and dealing with different customers versus the same customer you get when you're working in internal IT. I found that internal IT, I got burnt out a lot quicker than I did when I was going to different customers and dealing with different personalities and dealing with different issues all day. It really kind of engaged me a little differently than sitting in an office waiting for somebody to complain that their computer was slow. Um, and I quickly moved into management there. And that's when I first got into management, actually, at New Age Computer Consulting. They made me their IT manager. And so I managed all the field techs and all the in-shop techs. And I did that until, unfortunately, they got sideswiped or like T-boned by some I forget what it was, some incident with the owners and a partner, and they actually ended up shutting their doors overnight. And I then went on to Meridian Home Mortgage, which is sort of where I really learned everything that I'm doing now. I really, I took an IT department that was almost non-existent. They were using, this was pre-MSP. MSPs were just starting to become a thing, but really they were just your IT company that you called. And, there was no contracts. It was all break fix. So it was pre-MSP. They had a technology company that would provide support, but they were experiencing significant downtime almost weekly, to the point where every time they went down, it would be thousands of dollars it would cost them in revenue. And so I went in, no IT department, became the sole practitioner in this mortgage company, and came at a really foundational time because they were scaling rapidly. I joined when they were 30 employees, and when I exited, there were 300 almost.
Wow.
So I was able to get in there. They had all of their services on one box. I'm not a big fan of putting all my eggs in one basket, so I don't, we'll get into that a little bit later about how I choose vendors and things like that. But I do not put all my eggs in one basket. I feel like that's the quickest way to go down and not have any redundancy, right? So I quickly spread out some of their services, put email and file hosting and domain and Active Directory on different servers, and separated out those roles. And then started scaling the organization. Within 1 year we had 100 employees. Within 2 years we had 150, and we just kept growing and moving and opening new offices. And that 6 years went by quick. I ended up leaving with a team of around 12 and 2 contractors. But I had gotten an amazing. Meridian had an acquisition offer from a national bank, and they didn't want me in there. They wanted their own IT people in there. So I was given time to sort of find a new role while I faced the new integration. While I helped with the integration and the merger of the technologies and helped the new IT team get up to speed, I was able to search for a new role. And I applied for one job and one job only, and that was at Oracle. And this was back when I guess it was easier to get a job, because I applied for that job, got an interview within 2 weeks, and was hired within another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was the best job I've ever had. Oracle, if you're not familiar with them, hopefully everybody is. Very large technology company, software manufacturer. I mean, they're into everything now. And it was like going to Oracle for me, starting out where I started out, not really going the traditional route, going through college, and was like going to work for Google or Facebook or Microsoft. It was such a big deal for me at the time. I was a fanboy, let me tell you. I bought all their merchandise. I was wearing Oracle shirts everywhere. I was so proud of myself. And they sent me all over the world. I did some really cool things there. One of my primary responsibility was actually managing the development labs for their hospitality product line. So Oracle acquired a company back in 2014 called Micros. They're a point of sale company for restaurants, hotels. They do everything hospitality. And so what they did was they needed somebody to come in and standardize all of those labs, because Micros was doing things all kinds of crazy, and there was no real standardization, no real policies or procedures that they were following. Everybody was kind of doing things haphazardly and against Oracle policy. Oracle was very policy driven, for good reason. So they brought me in to standardize their labs and then inherit all of the global labs. There was about 14 in total, and they sent me all over the world. I lived in India for 3 months.
Oh
It was a
wow.
really yeah, it was a really great experience, and that was where I learned firsthand. Like, I had some security experience at Meridian because I was the sole practitioner in the IT department for a long time. So I had to sort of build those security policies from scratch. But my background wasn't in security. I kind of just inherited that because the roles I was in didn't have a security counterpart, but security was still a necessity, right? Especially in the mortgage industry. Oracle was the first place where I really discovered what corporate security and infosec is supposed to be. Cybersecurity in general is going through a CSAP process through Oracle takes 6 months, and that's as an example, if we're developing an application, the CSAP process for that application before it can ever be posted for beta or any kind of testing in the public has to go through a 6 month, very stringent review process by several security engineers, legal, and every time it goes to that review, you have to get on and defend. It's like almost defending your dissertation or a thesis, something like that. It's like it's almost defending your product in every loophole, every hole they try to find, you have to defend it and explain why it's there and explain the purpose.
Hmm.
It was a very arduous process, and I really at that point my eyes were open to, wow, cybersecurity is much larger than just stopping hackers from getting into your environment. There's
Indeed,
so
yeah.
much there's so much more that goes into it, and so I got a little bit of exposure to it then, but even still hadn't really done much on the security side of it except for defending some of these products and applications we were deploying in our environment. Um, yeah, I I hate to say it, I left Oracle, and I still kick myself because it's the stupidest thing I've done in my career as far as I'm concerned. I like what I've done so far, but I left Oracle in January of 2020 to go be the CIO for an MSSP and a MSP for dental. They were a dental specific MSP and MSSP. And they wanted to become a CSP. So all the cloud work that I'd done at Oracle had made some news somewhere amongst some people, and the CEO of DTC came to me and said, "We really like what you've done with streamlining those cloud operations. We want to do something similar for our dental customers because there are no cloud-based or SaaS-based dental products. We want to create a cloud platform where we can host these dental products for our customers and essentially keep them locked in with us."
Hmm.
Little duplicitous, but it's common practice now, and that's how you make money, and that's how you do business, I guess.
Right.
So I actually left Oracle to go be the CIO of this company, and unfortunately, within 3 months, everything got shut down because March 2020 is when the government pretty much
Because of
said,
COVID.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
COVID's a thing. We're non-essential businesses." And believe it or not, it's still bananas to me. Dental practices were not considered, at least in the DMV, which is Maryland, DC, and Virginia, they were not considered essential. Um, your car dealerships were essential, your mortgage brokers were essential, but not your dental office. Only for emergency services could they be open. So DTC's recurring revenue dried up nearly overnight. We went through serious rounds of layoffs, and I ended up, since I was brought in as a C-level executive, I had a contract, so I was safe until the following roughly March, but there was unfortunately a long recovery road for them, and they're doing great now. They're back on their feet, and I'm pretty sure they've implemented that project and they're doing great. But I had a lot of downtime there, and that's when I started really doing a lot of the HIPAA training and HIPAA compliance work because of the dental aspect. I had to start sort of doing HIPAA training and compliance training, and that's when I really got a thirst for cybersecurity. And so my next role was at the Better Business Bureau. And hopefully you're familiar with who the BBB is. If you're not,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they were founded in 1918. And I said I was a fanboy of Oracle. I'm also a fan of the Better Business Bureau. I know some people have, you know, a negative opinion of them, but I will tell you, everybody that I've worked with at that organization believes in the mission and believes in protecting consumers and making the marketplace a fair and equitable experience. And
Hmm.
so I came there and I became the director of IT operations and cybersecurity. And they did not have a cybersecurity role before I joined. They hired me just to fill that position and take over the operations team. And I will tell you, one of the easiest things to say to anybody considering whether or not they need cybersecurity. It's like, oh, we don't host any PII, we don't have any customer data, we don't need to have cyber liability insurance, anything like that. It's not just about the risk you put your data in or the risk you put your organization in by not having strong security policies or mitigation or remediation procedures. It's the reputation, the brand reputation that you're putting at risk. And
Right.
the Better Business Bureau is a nonprofit, so they don't have a lot of capital. I preached every day. Don't think about what data we're hosting. Don't think about the work we're doing. What is it going to mean if the headlines tomorrow are Better Business Bureau hit by cyber attack? And
Yeah.
that's you're putting your reputation at risk by not taking security seriously. And it was the easiest sell because when you have a brand that says lead with trust or start with trust, I'm forgetting their slogan off the top of my head, but it's one of those: lead with trust or start with trust or build with trust. It's hard to do that when you have that black eye in your history.
Well,
So
let's skip ahead a little bit. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to. I want to talk about your book, and as I mentioned before,
yeah,
the history of online scams and how to avoid them. I did have the opportunity to read this past weekend or earlier this week. I can't remember what day it is. I think it's Thursday right now. No, it's Wednesday. We're recording.
today's Wednesday. Yeah,
Um, Very well done. One of the things I liked about it was that you have, like, I believe at the end of a lot of the sections you have a lessons learned. It's just sort of like encapsulating everything, um, right from the what I just read through and
yeah.
and presented in a very pragmatic language. But can you bring me through uh, what was the genesis of the idea for the book and talk a little bit about what it covers?
Sure, sure. See, and I appreciate you reading it. I think maybe you're one of the only ones so far. So please do leave a review when you get a chance. Now it was a passion project that I had started about 2 years ago. I have a lot of family who are, I don't want to say inept at technology because that's not fair to say. They're just technology scares them and they are susceptible to these types of scams and these types of issues. And I'll also share that somebody that sells things on Facebook Marketplace or somebody that has an email account, I get my fair share of attempts at being scammed as well. And I actually enjoy messing with these guys, going back and forth. And so the genesis of the book was really the history of scams and the scammers and the desperation, the places of desperation they're in to force them to do the things that they're doing. And I'm not in no way or shape or form advocating for scammers or saying they're people just like us. I think they're the scum of the earth,
Hmm.
um, amongst the scum of the earth. It's become such a large scale business now. It's not just if you're getting if somebody, if like I said, if you're getting an email from a scammer, more than likely they're working for a large syndicate. They're not just trying to put food on their table for their baby. They're working for a large syndicate. They're at a call center. It's a real job for them. These are real jobs where people are getting actual paychecks from scamming these individuals in our country. So I became so fascinated by the history of that and how it's become such a large scale business in some of these countries like Nigeria, India, even China and Russia, and Ukraine, for an example, Philippines, all these places where desperation breeds these type of individuals that go into this business, this large scale business, and rip people off.
And I
So
love how you start from you don't just start by talking about the online scams.
right,
You start like almost like Genesis from the beginning of like
the
talking
Spanish
about
prisoner,
scams.
yeah.
Like, yeah, well, so tell us a little bit about the Spanish prisoners. I thought that
Yeah,
was
yeah. So
fascinating.
essentially, it's the Nigerian prince, or that's really where the Nigerian prince scam was, the origins of it. It's the Spanish prisoner at its core is um, an individual would write letters, send them out, usually targeted, but sometimes blindly, saying, I've been arrested or I've been imprisoned in this country wrongly. I need to pay this amount of money to get out. I have this fortune at my disposal, but I can't get to it. I need your help to pay this bail, and then when I get out, I'll split my fortune with you. And so many people fell for it that it actually made news when it was going around. And news wasn't widespread back then. They didn't have newspaper. I mean, they had publications, but it's
And
not
this
like
was in the
daily.
1800s, right?
18, even earlier,
Yeah.
1700s. Yeah.
So I mean,
Um,
it's almost like the same as the Nigerian prince thing, but
it,
that we're all familiar with, but a couple of hundred years later or earlier
it
rather.
is, yeah, yeah. The psychology behind that really, is born from the idea that all I have to do to get rich is invest a little bit of money, and then this person is going to give me some windfall. And that's
Mm.
and I hate to say the word greed, but it's what's born from that. Greed is really enough to make people lower their guard and not consider that this could be, a scam. And it's essentially what you're doing is gambling, but you're always going to lose. The house always wins in that gamble.
Yeah, and that's the way it is a lot of times with some of these scams. It's I would imagine that I always ask folks during this podcast what they feel is like one of the most significant threats to small and mid-sized business information security. And I know you've worked with the SMBs before. Is this one of the triggers for you writing this that you've seen not only family but also businesses that have fallen into
Absolutely,
this?
absolutely. So I worked with, and I can't go into too many details for confidentiality reasons, but I've worked with several organizations that were going through a breach or had experienced a breach, and the common denominator was always ransomware. So I think
Mm,
it's say I think it's from my point of view, it's safe to say one of the biggest threats to SMBs is really ransomware, especially if you don't have a robust security or cyber liability policy. And even if you do have a robust cyber liability policy, I've seen firsthand that cyber liability or cyber insurance carriers will come in, do their investigation, and unilaterally deny your claim because you checked a box that you had a certain apparatus in place, but that apparatus wasn't configured correctly. So the onus is now on the customer, or the onus is now on the victim. And a lot of these people can't afford to carry a $1 million ransom or the recovery cost of the downtime that it created, and so they go out of business. And I've seen it firsthand how they have to shut their doors, declare bankruptcy because they had to pay a $200,000 ransom, and that was all their operating capital. And so
well,
go
I
ahead,
think
sorry.
I think that this should be required reading for some of the businesses out there. You really do present it in a very pragmatic way, a very conversational way, which I found to be yeah, effective in transferring the idea of all of these different scams without getting into the technical weeds. Because a lot of times I found, I don't know about you, but I found that sometimes when talking about all these scams that are out there, if you get too technical with it, you kind of get the deer in the headlight look, like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. But here, short, concise, nice summary at the end, not only of each section, but also, I believe, at the end of each chapter. If I remember correctly, I think you've got it segmented into basically four large chapters,
four
each
parts. Yeah,
one, and then you summarize each one of those at the end. And the other thing that I liked about it, I have to admit, I'm going through this. I'm like, well, he's giving these stories and he's giving these stats, and yet I don't see any references to it. But at the end, you have not only references and resources where people can go to follow up if they're interested more in digging into some of the details. But also for those that might
selfishly,
not
you
have,
probably saw a scam tracker on there.
do what now?
I said selfishly, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I said selfishly, you probably saw the BBB scam tracker on there. I'll tell you why in a minute. Please
Oh
finish your.
yeah, yeah, and that, and also you have a glossary back there too for us folks or folks out there that might get hung up on a particular word or something. But anyway, tell me what you were just about to say about that scam.
Yeah, so I was just saying, so as you mentioned, there are some resources at the end of the book for readers to, if they have experienced some type of incident or scam, or they need assistance, they need more information. In that section, you'll see that the Better Business Bureau scam tracker is listed there, and that's primarily because I worked
Mm,
on that project with Capital One and Amazon, who co-sponsored that rollout. I
that's
managed the
right.
team that developed and published that product, and it's one of the best tools I've ever used to report scams and also track what scams are actually active in your area.
I
So
think I said DVD and I meant to say BBB. I thought you said DVD. I was
no,
like, I was trying to fake my way through it. I'm like, yeah, I saw something about DVDs back there.
BBB, yeah, I said it kind of BBB. And there's, as you said, there's also a glossary. I really did, as you pointed out, I really did want to write a book that would be easy for you know somebody that may not be comfortable with computers, somebody that hasn't really worked with computers a lot, maybe in their later years. as well as employees at organizations that are doing cybersecurity training. This is a nice accompaniment to that. Those trainings, like Know Before, you run through those trainings really quick, and you're just clicking yes, 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 I understand. It's easy to forget that information because you're just trying to get through your workday. But when you have an actual book that sort of outlines how these scams work, the psychology behind them, and how to spot the red flags, I really feel is a beneficial tool that organizations can use. So I did keep that in mind when I wrote the book. I wanted to make it accessible for everyone.
Well, now, one thing that you didn't mention in the book, and I know we have this in our field, is that it can be very stressful. It can be stressful if you're a victim of these scams. It can be stressful being in the field of technology and security just because there's so many things going on. We have to protect, we have to make sure people can get their data, we have to make sure systems are up. And sometimes we don't do a great job with dealing and managing that stress. What's one of the things that you do, Ryan, to help decompress, as I say, from the stresses of our industry?
Yeah. Lately it's just been binge watching TV shows, but really I love being out on the water when the weather's nice. I have a car collection that I like to tinker with. Mountain biking is a great way for me to decompress. And I live in a great city that's walkable, and I kind of just I've gotten really good over the years. I've been doing this long enough. I can sort of disassociate myself with an issue I'm working on at work and really immerse myself in my private life. It's not an easy skill to attain, but it is doable, and I've mastered it. So I sort of just disconnect at the end of the day. At a certain level that I'm at now, you can never really truly disconnect because you're always on call. But um, I've I said I'm proud of myself, I guess, to get to this point and have built environments that aren't necessarily very noisy, so to speak. So I'm not getting a lot of calls late at night. But yeah, just being out on the water, mountain biking, going for walks, spending time with the kids or the family. It's pretty much what
So
keeps
tell
me
us about your,
level-headed.
yeah, tell us about your future plans. So you have another book, maybe,
I
maybe
do.
in the
I
works?
actually, I just started writing another book. It's how to stay safe. Really for kids. It's
Ah,
I have a 14-year-old daughter who is so blindly trusting of all technology, and I've watched her grow up around technology and how much she uses it in her life, but how blindly she trusts it and just
mm,
trusts the internet. And it's so I'm working on I'm sort of outlining and storyboarding it now, but my next book is going to be for parents, how to keep kids safe in this technology age without making your kids hate you. I haven't nailed out the title yet, but it's going to be something like that. It's probably going to have the words how to do this without having your kids hate you.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah,
I tell folks, I've been around for a while doing this in the industry, but when I was 14, the most significant technology I think that I had was the Atari 2600, so I didn't have to worry about all this stuff. And I'm glad I grew up in that era as opposed to this era. It's got to be difficult, but every generation, every era has their own challenges, I guess.
certainly, certainly.
So well,
And
Ryan,
we
thank you
all,
so
like you
much
said,
for
we all grew up with some challenges. Absolutely.
yeah, thank you so much for being on. We're just about out of time. Really appreciate you coming on. I want to flash up here one more time the title, "The History of Online Scams and How to Avoid Them." You can get that on Amazon, as I did. Ebook, and I think that there's a ebook print version. Holographic novel. No, wait,
Yeah.
that's not
Yep.
been developed
Paperback,
yet.
hardback,
That's
and ebook. You got it.
but I really appreciate you spending the time to come on and talk with us today.
Truly my pleasure. It was really great talking to you guys.
And everybody, stay secure.